You're listening to the Immigration Lawyers Toolbox podcast, the podcast that keeps your practice sharp and your clients happy. I'm your host, immigration lawyer John Khosravi, and every week we're bringing you insights, tips, and real-world conversations with top immigration attorneys and industry leaders. Whether you're here to grow your practice, stay on top of the latest trends, or get inspired, you're in the right place. Ready? Let's go. Hello, fellow Toolboxers. Welcome to episode number 419 of the Immigration Lawyers Toolbox podcast. Thanks again for listening. We're really running them up, doing a lot of interviews, a lot of new content types of episodes. So having a good time doing it. I hope you're having the same. If you can, leave a review so we know. 5 stars appreciated, nothing less, on Spotify or iTunes, wherever you're watching this. Check it out. And also, if you want clips of this information, a lot of it's on Instagram, on YouTube. It's all of our social media, but a quick way to see clips of longer episode you might not be able to catch, or older ones, go to our Instagram page. We have a lot of statistics on immigration too that you could use. And if you see any you like, they're already white labeled in our private community page, but happy to give it to you so you put your own law firm logo on there in colors to publicize it. And we'll try to create more things that are marketing stuff that I use in my law firm, but also you can use as well. Clients are not going to see both of them, so no one's going to know. If you're a lawyer or law firm, let me know, hit me up, or you could join the community page on Circle.so. We need your bar info to make sure you're a lawyer, a U.S. lawyer, and we can take it from there. But today's episode is an interview with Helen Partlow. She provided a really good article about the NIW standard, what she calls the Dhanasar II standard, which has gotten really more complicated. But before getting into any of that, I talked with her about her background, how she became an immigration attorney. Very interesting background. A lot of people could relate to it. So I'm glad I got to know her and get to personally, and her firm at Waypoint Immigration is really cool. A lot of great immigration lawyers work there that I see have great posts and have great success. So it's really cool to connect with her on a personal level. Feel free to reach out, but check out her article in the magazine, the Toolbox magazine. It's going to help you a lot, and it has her emails in there too. So hint, hint, you can always contact people. Don't tell them I told you, and develop friendships like that. Friendships are key in the immigration game to get things going, and it's key to your success. So those relationships are so important. Don't throw away the chance to create them. In the magazine, we have great articles on other stuff. You have Joy Barnett from Wolfsdorf Rosenthal talking about Chinese Communist memberships got harder. Megan Kirshner talking about H-2A visas. Maybe Alcacor, I think it is. I'm going to ask her. I'm interviewing her next week on the Lake and Riley Act, how it affects our cases. Karen Wollman has a great article about, a lot of stuff's obviously out. It's always USCIS, more stuff. But we also have this narrowing of CAT, the Convention Against Torture, recent BI decision by Ines Hajdar Parsik. I'm going to be interviewing him as well. So it's not just business and employment-based kind of stuff. We have a mix that's there. We're continuing. So if you want to get your name out and get publicized with your firm and help colleagues, happy to get you published. Just you have to be a U.S. immigration lawyer. Send me a topic idea if you see it's something we could go with. No one else has done it. And it's 2 or 3 pages, citation not needed. Just email me, info@immigrationlawyerstoolbox.com. It's the thing to do to get stuff published. It's hard. There's only limited amount of space on AILA. So we have an alternative to get your name out there too. If you're up and coming, if you're doing it for a while, you want to get it started, happy to help, and then do an interview and really just have you part of the Immigration Lawyers Toolbox network. And speaking of the network, I want to thank our very special sponsors who've been supporting us for so long. E-Immigration by Serenade. Have you heard their name before? But it's worth hearing again, and all the great stuff they're doing to help support the immigration lawyers community. In particular, the special event they're having. Are you looking for ways to keep calm and serve your clients? With the state of immigration law today, I bet I know the answer. On September 30th, our friends at e-immigration are hosting a live webinar with performance psychology expert Nikola Milonkovic. That's all about stress management. This is not your typical just breathe session. You'll learn practical tools rooted in psychology and high performance coaching, how to manage self-talk, control your attention, and create a culture that supports resilience. Go to get.eimmigration.com/events to save your spot. Again, that's get.eimmigration.com/events. I already registered my spot. I hope to see you there. I'm not hosting the event, but the great speaker is going to come. So it's really good to know. Actually, the next interview after this, I'm going to be talking with a college professor, a law school professor, who's definitely had to deal with these kind of issues for 23 years of being in the battle. We get into that. So it's such an important topic, especially with everything that's going on. It's only 9 months into it, and hell is has leaped into the middle world, and we're seeing fires go on everywhere. Having said that, please check out the magazine, the Immigration Lawyers Toolbox magazine. Issue number 10 is out. If you go to immigrationlawyerstoolbox.com, there's a link to it where you can find that issue and older issues as well to get you started on your path to becoming a better and better immigration lawyer. It's the number one place to start is with our stuff. You got to have AILA membership, but this is at the same, I would say it's equal now with the amount of content we have. For you to really learn hands-on kind of stuff, this is what's going to get you there. So, having said all that, let's get the show started. None of the information right here is intended as individual legal advice, but you'll know that already. Hi, Helen. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. It's great to meet you and have a
For
talk.
sure. So, could you start about how you came into immigration law, where you grew up, and how you got into immigration law?
Yeah, sure. So I'm from Long Island, New York. Um, I went to law school here. I passed the bar in New York and in Massachusetts. So I actually started out of law school in Massachusetts as a real estate attorney. Um, so I always knew I wasn't the kind that wanted to be a litigator or anything like that, like going into court. So I was looking for like different opportunities, and real estate presented itself. It was not the greatest fit for me just as far as like my interests go. So my bachelor's is actually in history, so I've always been interested in like how the world became the way that it is now, like through culture and society and like geopolitics and all of those things. So I did take off some time to raise my kids and do some other things. So when I got back into law, immigration law presented itself, and I was like, wow, this really is like a good connection to like what my interests have always been, with just history, like I said, and just like the world being the way that it is, and just learning, you know, from different perspectives. Like I'm always really interested in how everyone's lives are so widely
Yeah.
different around the world. And yeah, it just kind of like seemed like a natural next progression, honestly.
Yeah, being an immigration attorney is like having almost like a private information collection source because you talk to people from everywhere, and you get to know so much about what's actually happening on the ground as opposed to what you see on TV or the news. You actually have people there that are dealing with the issues. How did your career develop from there?
Right.
So you were a real estate? How did you make the switch to immigration? I mean, most people don't know even about immigration. So how did that even come to mind to even switch?
I just when I was looking back in the workforce, I had applied for a bunch of different jobs. Like I originally thought that I was going to maybe be a court attorney because through law school I worked at district court. So kind of like behind the scenes where you kind of do like the reading and the writing and researching for judges and stuff. So I mean, like I was looking for those opportunities, but that was more like a necessity kind of a role than necessarily something I was interested in. So just as I was like rejoining the workforce, immigration law just came up in my, when I was trying to think like, what do I want to do now? Like I've been a mom, I'm also a lawyer, trying to get back into it once my kids started school. And like I said, I just saw the job postings and I just kind of jumped into it without really knowing what I was getting myself into per se. Um, so I just kind of like went all in, and I've like it's been a great decision. Like I'm really happy that I just kind of jumped into it and been here ever since. So,
And what kind of cases would you handle to start? I mean, because right now you focus on a lot of EB and EB, like national interest waivers, EB-1A. But were you doing other types of immigration before that?
yeah, so my very first role was only NIW. So did NIWs repeatedly, all day, every day, um, and really kind of got a really good understanding as to how to tell those stories. And it really is like an art form. And I feel like that's even more true
Mm.
now than it was at the beginning. And then the role I'm in now, it just, I progressed to also adding in EB-1A. So I've been doing a ton of EB-1As along the way. And, it feels like a natural progression when you have like the NIW as your foundation to move on to EB-1As because they do have a lot of overlap and they are similar kind of clients and, different kind of
Hmm.
needs out there for people that are looking for both options. Um, Obviously, EB-1A is a little bit harder to get, of course. Well, I mean, I guess that could be
Yeah.
arguable at this point, as to which one might be easier. But yeah, it just seemed like that to be like the natural progression for me. And we also do like some family, visas and adjustment of statuses and change of statuses. Occasionally like some student visa issues might come up, but that's definitely minor. I would say the vast majority of my time is spent on NIWs and EB-1As.
Well, the vast
So
majority of your time, I see on your LinkedIn that you became managing attorney of the firm. So I'm guessing your time it's changed a lot because managing a firm, it's and you got a couple attorneys at your firm. So tell me about that, about the new position and how that changed your day to day.
yeah, so I mean, in my last job, in my last law firm, I also became supervising attorney. So very similar yet different source of things. So when I joined this one, I did start as associate, but then I did get promoted again in a similar kind of role as managing attorney. So managing both the team and the caseload, as well as doing some business development. And obviously, if you see my LinkedIn, some online marketing through that. I also go live every week or trying to like talk to, different people that are on our channels and just kind of, there's a lot of disinformation
Yeah.
out there, a lot of wrong assumptions and rumors with NIWs. And, I feel like at this point, it's almost my own mission to kind of go against all of that and try to clear the air and just, help people just understand what this actually is and if this opportunity is right for them or if it's not. But definitely trying to like get ahead of like all those Reddit forums where people just kind of or use chat
Yeah.
gpt for their answers, trying to like set the record straight in a way. And that is kind of echoing our firm's mission too. So Waypoint was designed from the start to be different in that we don't represent any companies. So that is not, anything that we do. That's why we don't do H-1Bs, we don't do perms, we don't do any of those, more typical kind of applications when you are in business immigration. So we saw like a need that a lot of people were relying on their company's attorneys, and their company attorney does not have their best interests in mind. They are for the company
Yeah.
ultimately. That is where their loyalties lie. Um, so, Amber, who founded the firm, saw that, there should be a place that people can go where someone's got their back just as much as someone else. So that's the foundation as to why we started. And that's why I think like I'm a really good fit for that because I'm trying to also just help with all those rumors and, things that are out there and kind of helping set the record straight for people.
It's funny you say that because I did a LinkedIn post yesterday because the visa bulletin had moved up and the USCIS is allowing data filing. And the sale of
Yeah.
the post was the end was that we don't help the employer. We only focus on self petition. So, or we'll do the I-485. Someone did the perm, so you have your independent. So it's echoing my personal thesis too, like separating that. I mean, sometimes it is what it is, but people really should have their own attorney for the adjustment of status or even NIW. Even when the employer pays for the EB-1A, I don't like. Let's talk about. Do you have an opinion on that? I don't like personally like it for the employer to petition NIW EB-1A. It should be self petition, just separate it from the beginning. Do you have any perspective on that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I get a lot of consultations from people that had their NIW done with their employer. And of course, they come to me when it goes wrong, right? Like I don't hear about the happy endings. I hear about the problems, but the problems being that, the company attorney does not share anything with the
Yeah,
applicant. They don't really ask them what their proposed endeavor is. So when they're trying to say, what's your future plan? They're only looking at it from the employer's perspective, right? And, which makes sense because if someone does want to jump ship into a different industry or change a job or create their own business, that's like an awkward conversation. So that's not going to happen with the employer anyway. But a lot of the time, they just don't share what they've actually written down. And then they make the proposed endeavor so closely tied to the job itself or the employer. Like it's just that's the world that they're coming from and that's the world that they're describing in these applications. And then the officer comes back and says, well, you don't really have a proposed endeavor because your proposed endeavor is just to continue whatever your
yeah,
job is, which is not a proposed endeavor. Like the proposed endeavor is very much mission focused. It's like this mission that should be happening no matter what employer the person's at. Could be done outside of employment. Like it's just not in that kind of a way. And then the people come to me because they've gotten an RFE, and I've seen a lot of the time that it seems like the employer's attorney just kind of gives the RFE to the person and just kind of says like, figure
yeah.
it out or like, it's either on them to respond to or to clarify something, and they don't really know what's happening and they don't really know what was even said. So it's really hard to make a game plan. So, I always tell them, you can bring this on your own. You can therefore be in control of what it says. If you do want to make a business or change industries or go from research into like an industry role, anything like that, you can tell all of that to the officer, and that all would make sense. Like, we would just have to describe it in a common sense way, and then the officer will see, like, it's not just a job that you're describing. It is a mission and is something that, is benefiting more than just a company, because that's what they always seem to say in these
Mhm.
RFEs. It's just tied to a job.
National in
You're
scope. And
just continuing that job. It's a job duty, a list of job duties, and it's not that kind of an application.
well, in line with that, there's recently I noticed on LinkedIn there's a cottage industry of EB-1A support, which helps you in different ways. Not attorneys. I was surprised how many posts are coming up my feed of people that are not lawyers helping that. And once had someone contact us about sponsorship a year or two ago about like they help people get magazine articles and the like. And at first I was like, oh, let's do it. But then I'm like, I don't know, is that appropriate or not to have these companies like pay to
Mhm.
play kind of thing for you get articles for EB-1A, which could work for NIW. But there's other people that help you bolster and strategize. And there is a strategy to it. If long term you're thinking about doing this, of like, okay, let me do these conferences and judging, for example, stuff like that, which is legal. But just I've had clients who didn't want to judge because it was too busy. But I'm like, no, 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 go and do the judging because they're already asking you to do it. Just do it. But have you seen any particular vendors? You don't have to name any particular, but is there any space here for these kind of groups that you've seen with your clients?
Yeah, so I definitely think that this is a service that could be beneficial, but there are also people that are preying upon people and doing things the wrong way. So, I've seen most attorneys, like, I might tell someone, do profile building. You might want to do like judge role, like you said, like judge panels are usually really good for both NIW and for EB1A type of activities. And like, I don't know what opportunities are out there for people. Like, I'm not giving them a list like, oh, this is what's upcoming. Maybe you should put in for this. It looks like it aligns with, your field or whatever. Like, those aren't things that I'm capable of doing. Like, I'm looking at the bigger picture, what kind of strategy, things that you already have done, does it align? And I am telling people, like, some profiling suggestions, but I don't have like names of conferences or contacts or anything like that. So I do think that that is beneficial, like when you do have people that are helping you kind of like, align with different opportunities out there. But the problem is the people that are saying, oh, well, we can write your publication and get you 100 citations for you, and they're obviously that's fraud. So there are the people that are doing the good work, helping people like find these opportunities in a genuine way, because it all has to be
Yeah.
genuine, right? At the end of the day, like, you have to be the one doing the work. You're the ones that getting the role for the judge role because of your expertise, not because of the person that helps you. Like, that person may just tell you that this opportunity exists, and you may not know this opportunity exists, but you are getting it based upon your own merits. So in that way, it's helpful. But definitely there are a lot of, journals out there that are like a red flag journal, like they don't actually really exist, or there's people doing like some ghostwriting or buying citations. All of that is obviously super sketchy and a big red flag and a major no when it comes to anyone looking for opportunities and like maybe who to trust and who not to trust.
Now, speaking of who to trust, your posts on LinkedIn are really good content. So every time I read them, I go, "Oh, this is pretty like juicy kind of stuff." I mentioned on one of my comments that you should gather them all and make like a pamphlet out of it. And you just actually published. I saw you published like a ebook for people. Um, how often? How much time does it spend for you? Because your writing is depth, so it's like you're not just writing something one off. Like, how much time are you spending dedicated every day to post? Hey, everybody, I'm going to jump in really quick to remind you of our private community page, circle.so, where you could join and share information in a private setting, discussions, content. We share white label content, AEO decision reviews, private CLEs, and much, much more job listings to get you into your next step of your career. And again, much, much more. All you got to do is be a U.S. immigration lawyer, just U.S. lawyer. I always say U.S. immigration. I'm so used to saying that. I mean, the podcast is Immigration Lawyers Toolbox, but you just need a U.S. lawyer because a lot of people are trying to become immigration lawyers. And then go to our website, immigrationlawyerstoolbox.com. Go to the community tab, and I'll have a registration link there. We need your bar info. We got to make sure you're really an attorney. And we'll get you in. And you'll also join our newsletter too when we have updated information stuff that we share. It's going to be great to have you in the community, get to know you. We already have over 350 people. Goal is to get to 1,000. Please help us all get there. The bigger the group, I think 1,000 is a sweet spot where there's just information flow coming on a hardcore basis. And I know we can get there very soon with your help and really support the community as is. Again, that's Immigration Lawyers Toolbox community page on the website.com. You can check that out. And let's get back to the show.
I probably don't do it every day, honestly. I mean, I schedule them in advance, but I'm always thinking like, so it's kind of taking a step back. But when I was a stay at home mom, I did work for Macaroni Kid, which most people don't know what that is, but it is a national company and like a platform. And like you take your own local area wherever you are. It is across America and even in parts of Canada. So my little corner of Long Island, like I would help match businesses with families or like tell them different events to go to, things that they can do with their little ones or older ones, teens, doing blogs and guides to the area. So I learned a lot about storytelling, marketing, and social media posts and just like content creation from that job. So while it was completely unrelated to law, I actually really find it helpful to have had that experience, just kind of moving forward in the role I'm at now with LinkedIn and just like business development. So it's like using those kind of skills, but in a different way. So to like find out what I want to talk about, there's things that people always are asking me, like about reference letters. People always want to know about reference letters, whether that be EB-1A or NIW. People are always confused. What is a proposed endeavor? What does that mean? How do I analyze my own career as to find out what that would look like for me? So I kind of use those frequently asked questions just to kind of base a lot of the content. And then also just things that come up in consultations. So obviously I take a lot of consultations and again, kind of like seeing what people are talking about, what people are asking. Um, and kind of just giving more specific examples based on the consultations as they just come up. So, I might have like an idea as to like after I have a consultation with someone, be like, oh, they really mentioned something that I think would be a good post, like something good to post about. Or, maybe this person's in cybersecurity and they have some sort of roadblock to this application that maybe someone else from cybersecurity would also have. A lot of our clients are in the tech field, cybersecurity, engineering, data analysts, um, software engineering, just engineering like other kinds of engineers as well. But, a lot of it is proprietary. And they always say, oh, well, how do I share this stuff when I'm not allowed to share this stuff? So, like things like that kind of come up across the board. And people just continually struggle with certain things. Um, and then again, when I get a consultation, someone might ask me the wrong kind of question. And I'll say, well, that's not really the right question. You should be
Yeah.
asking me, XYZ instead, because we're looking at it from a different perspective. So I guess a combination of things that come up in the moment that I might just then run to LinkedIn and write it down before I forget about it. And then other times it's just like things that just seem to continuously
And I'm
pop up.
guessing it's part of your regular schedule because, like, maybe LinkedIn just shows back ones, but I'll go. I get inundated with your probably because I read one and then it goes your history and sees like this guy likes reading your post, so LinkedIn keeps sending it to me. But what have you found the quality of the leads that you get from LinkedIn to be?
Yeah, so I think people DM me and I'll usually like have some sort of follow-up conversation and I've tried different things too, trying to look at ways for them to be interactive. So like I just recently shared a poll, that way they can kind of click on it and kind of help with some sort of algorithm. And it also gives me an idea as to my audience, where are they at in their path? Like, are they just thinking about NIW? Have they already applied? Um, Maybe they already have an approval, and maybe now with the visa bulletin that just came out, maybe now they can do an adjustment or something like that. So, trying to always gauge where people are at in their journey through like things like polls and stuff like that. But then also, trying to get hopefully like people wanting to join in on the conversation also, whether that be another attorney, because I always appreciate anyone's, own perspective, or, their experience is certainly different than mine, or just like someone maybe asking a question that, again, more than one person certainly has. So I think that kind of also helps, just kind of varying perspectives. And I also want people to know that I am a real
Yeah.
human on the other side of the computer. This is not just like some robot. Like when you DM me on LinkedIn, I'm the one answering. Like I don't have anyone else answering for me. I don't have any sort of
Not
AI
yet, anyways.
implemented or anything like that. I want them to know like you're going to get me, and I want them to know a little bit about who I am. Obviously I'm a little quirky. We all have our own little personalities and things. So, I guess I'm trying to also balance like being genuine on there, letting them know a little bit about me as the individual, as well as giving them like, you know, obviously they also want to just kind of get to it sometimes
Yeah.
and just learn something.
Well, speaking of that's what you when you have a consultation set up, these NIW one cases, they're big. There's just a lot going on, and sometimes they don't even know the answers. Somebody's got to
Right.
jump. You can't have too much niceties because there's only so much time to go in initial consult. But then, do you do multiple consults? That's to gather all the information. Or do you like say, okay, we'll have one main one and just send me a follow up, or how do you gather enough information as fast as possible to decide whether to give the contract or not?
Yeah, so, I have them send me their resume. They answer just a couple of questions, and I also kind of want to get straight to it, like you said. So, I'll, ask them, can they hear me okay? Obviously we have technology involved here because we meet online. And then it just kind of gets straight into it. I want to know like what are they here? What kind of status are they on? How are they using the NIW? Do they have any sort of background knowledge
Hmm.
on the NIW, or are they kind of going fresh into it? A lot of the things that people kind of don't understand is this doesn't give you a status, it doesn't let you work, it doesn't let you do a lot of things. It's like a
Yeah,
long-term
there's a
plan
backlog to
sort
it
of a
too.
thing.
So
So I'm trying to also gauge, yeah, pretty quickly, like, okay, what kind of rumors do they
yeah.
know? And kind of like try and dispel that. And then I go straight into like the proposed endeavor. So I spend probably a lot of the time trying to help figure that out. And it happens at different points than others. I might spend most of the consultation figuring that out if someone doesn't really have something in mind, or like trying to navigate what that looks like. Sometimes it's obvious right away as to what that would be. And the person's like, oh, yeah, that sounds exactly what I want to do. And kind of move forward, and then trying to figure out, okay, now that we know their proposed endeavor, how are they impacting more than just their employer? What evidence do they have that they've done it? What will they do in the future? And kind of figuring all of that out. But I would say most of the time, I meet with people that aren't quite ready to get started. And then I'll tell them, okay, we'll kind of set
Yeah.
some sort of expectation where we'll reach back out to each other in X amount of months. It could be 3 months, 6 months, you know, probably not too much more past the 6 month stage. Um, Maybe sometimes a little bit past that, depending upon the person and, what their timeline kind of looks like. But, I tell people if you have any sort of questions, you can just, email me something quick. If it involves something that's not simple, then we might need another consultation at the follow up stage. But more often than not, people can just kind of get me up to date. I revert back to like my notes from the initial
Mhm.
consultation and kind of just see how many gaps they've been able to fill, or like what they've been able to solidify. And then at that point, we might initiate it then, or we might say, okay, in 3 more months, maybe we'll follow up, or maybe they did get perm to go
Yeah.
through or something, but I haven't really heard that happen as much certainly lately. But people have like backup plans. Obviously, this is not, you know, they're not only doing this; they're trying to kind of have it be amongst maybe several options going forward. So most of the time, ultimately, I can determine at the end of the consultation if they are able to move forward, our profile build, and then just follow
Well,
up
once you get them in, these are information and document particular heavy cases. What system or systems do
for
you have
sure.
you over time developed to be able to efficiently gather all that evidence and labeling and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I mean, definitely get overloaded with documents very quickly, especially for EB-1As. I feel like definitely drowning in PDFs and things like that. But, we have a case manager that helps kind of gather everything. And then once she gathers it, then I look it over. So the way that we have it set up, like on the drive, we try to like figure things out with like subfolders. So, if the person has publications, there's one subfolder for that, and maybe subfolders for, different journals. Or if they have conferences, maybe different, because they probably have more than one document for each conference. So then, like, organizing it by conference, organizing it by like employer contributions, or like EB1As, we kind of organize it by criteria, and then again, like subfolders as to different activities within those criteria. Um, and yeah, I mean, it can definitely be difficult, but I think by like establishing these subfolders, and hopefully the client helps us organize within those subfolders, that definitely helps too. And then the case manager further helps. Like, we have an intake strategy sheet where I call it like my cheat sheet, because, obviously, can't keep every single client separate in my head all the time. There's too many at this point, and a lot of them are in overlapping fields. So, if it doesn't exist on my intake strategy sheet, like, it doesn't exist anywhere, because all my thoughts are on the intake strategy sheet. The case manager helps like establish what kind of evidence we have for the different arguments. And then I might like, if the person say has for like an NIW has like 20 certifications or something like that, I might say, okay, well, let's really try to focus on these top three are the ones that are the most impressive or the most prestigious or the most difficult to get. And I'll like, make sure to put like a comment, and, that way it's like an internal communication. And it's
Mhm.
also for me, honestly, just so I can go back and remember where did I leave off with this person? What was my last thought? So that way I can remember too, which is most certainly
Sure.
important in trying to keep everything organized, my thoughts and
Now,
the
do you have
files.
you mentioned a case manager? Is that the same role as a paralegal with different name, or is there a paralegal as separate?
We have paralegals too, so it's actually a different role here. So the case manager helps with like a lot of the initiation, like invoicing and gathering any sort of worksheets that we have, gathering the documents. We have like a document list that we just kind of give out to everyone. So it's obviously more basic, but then as time goes on, we might determine like, oh, well, this part is missing, and it's something specific. So then we would let the client know, um like, you gave us like you did this conference, maybe they just gave us the invitation and
Yeah.
that's all, like an invitation on email or something, and which doesn't prove that they
Perfect.
actually did
Yeah.
do the conference, right? It just proves that they were invited. So then we might say, okay, well, we need proof that you actually did do this. Do you have like another email that, thanks you for your time, or a certificate of appreciation, maybe a pamphlet that shows that you were on the agenda for the day, like, obviously we need something, because otherwise it would just prove that they were invited and then nothing came of it. So, the case manager helps establish those sorts of things. Then the paralegal kind of kicks in later on, and they help put together like the exhibit lists. So the case manager does the upfront gathering. I review things the entire time, help set strategy and review that the strategy was implemented. And then the paralegal helps put together the exhibit list, which then I also review. And then also, again, we review the documents like, I don't know,
Yeah.
5, 6 plus times throughout the course of the entire application for both NIW and EB1A. And, if it comes up, we whoever would reach out to the client, say, do you have these documents? Do you have something else that we can help show? And then, the client usually doesn't always think of everything. There's a lot of documents, there's a lot of things, and I'm looking at it from a different perspective from them too. So, kind of just help guide them. And it's really a partnership, right? So it's like I couldn't do this
Yeah.
without them. If they don't give me any documents, I can't do anything. So it's really helping them figure out what kind of documents to give. And then obviously, ultimately, up to me, does it help actually establish what we're
Yeah,
trying to
I've had
argue?
clients before where they're just like, they hire me and expect me to like find all the documents. I'm like, the internet's good, but it doesn't have everything. Like they get annoyed that they're like, "Why just paid you? You
Right,
figure it
right.
out." I'm like, I need your help. I don't know your life, so you got to help me out here. Now,
Right,
yeah,
right. Yeah, I mean, like we have a worksheet for them to like describe their projects and stuff because a lot of these people are
hmm
technical. And I do not have a technical background. Like I said already, I have a history degree. So I don't have any of that tech experience. So just trying to have them help us also understand. But the officer
yeah,
doesn't know either, right? The officer, who knows what background they have. So they're kind of in a similar boat to the attorney in that they're not experts in the field and that's what the client is, so they need to kind of help us understand their work and like the details of their role within the different projects and things like
definitely.
that.
And last thing I want to mention is your great article that you contributed for issue number 10 of the Immigration Lawyers Toolbox magazine about what you've coined Dhanasar II, which is a stricter NIW analysis, national interest waiver analysis. Could you briefly talk about that the last couple minutes of the show? What you've been seeing that's come more stricter, essentially in the last year of Biden and continue till now, from what I've seen.
Yeah, I would say it definitely started at the tail end of Biden for sure. I would say like before the tail end of Biden, so like a little bit further ago. For instance, if someone would say, "Oh, I'm an AI," they would say, "Okay, that's so great. You have some evidence.
Yeah, good
Welcome.
times.
You are approved," because AI is like such a hot topic, right? But then, like as Biden's presidency went on, they were like, "Okay, well, you're an AI, but what are you actually doing in AI?" Right? Because AI could be in healthcare, it could
hmm
be in finance, it could be in like all these different things. And they really wanted to like, that was like the start of it, I would say, where they definitely wanted to know like where will your impact actually land. You couldn't just say like, oh, I'm an AI expert. You definitely had to start showing more. I mean, it wasn't
Yeah,
always that simple. Obviously, I'm
yeah.
kind of like
So it wasn't
paraphrasing.
like it is now,
Um,
where they're just like, you
but
could be the
then,
best expert in the world, but
yeah,
still put
now
you back
they
in.
they want to know. Yeah, so they definitely wanted to have like a lot more objective evidence. A lot of clients are like, "Oh, well, I can just share that in a reference letter." And it's like, "Okay, well, that's great." And I'm sure this person is prestigious in their own right. But at the end of the day, anyone could
Yeah.
say anything in a letter. Like that doesn't really necessarily prove anything. And, of course, we always include like the person's CV or profile or resume to help show that they are capable of rendering such an opinion. But still, at the end of the day, people can embellish. And, it's not like
Mhm.
they're lying, of course, or anything like that. But, it doesn't always prove enough. So definitely need like objective evidence backing up the reference letter, backing up the petition letter. And that's where a lot of people struggle. And that's why I think we're seeing a lot higher RFE rate, um, trying to like show proof of these things when a lot of the time they don't have proof that they're allowed to
Yeah.
share. So that's where it becomes difficult and trying to find like what documents can they share and what is public facing, right? So, the age old researcher publication citation route is still good because that shows publicly what this person has been able to accomplish and show. But when the person's not a researcher and their work is more internalized, that's when it really gets more difficult. And that's again why I think we're seeing one of the reasons anyway why we're seeing like a higher RFE rate. And also the officers are saying, like this person's it hasn't risen to the level of national importance. Well, no one says
Yeah.
what this level is. Like that's not defined anywhere. Like, okay, what is a level of
Yeah.
national importance? So that's like the question now in these RFEs that the officers are raising, but there is no definition of what that looks
That's what
like.
makes EB-1A a little bit better because the criteria are much more specific. Even they get vague sometimes about that, but this
Right.
NIW is just like, what is the standard? It's so wishy-washy, and it depends really on the
Yeah.
person that's reviewing it.
Yeah, I think NIW is harder in finding the story to tell and having evidence to back it up. And EB1A, while it might be easier in a way to tell the story, you're just overloaded
Yeah.
with documents. So, if you can claw your way out of the PDFs, you can make the story, easier ultimately. So I guess they're just like two
Yeah.
ends of the same coin, right? So One is a little bit easier to tell, but you're inundated with documents. The other one is harder to tell, but you have a
Yeah, a
little
little more
less
flexibility on
documents.
that end. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. I'll add your LinkedIn page to the show notes so people can reach out to you. I know that's the primary way. Is there any other particular way? Your website's Waypoint Immigration.
Yep, waypointimmigration.org. Obviously we have all of our information on there. We have the new NIW guide that I did create with all the FAQs and the download and things like that. Um, so yeah, I'm mainly on LinkedIn, on the website, and then we do also have like a YouTube where we share like the live
You know,
streams and things
AILA
like
just
that.
published their AILA Pulse Practice Management 2025, which is the old marketplace study.
Yes.
And I on the first page right here is like people aren't using freemium offerings like white papers or do-it-yourself forms or that kind of PDFs. I've did a marriage green card one. It's been very helpful. It's like 70 pages going through the whole process. A lot of people have said we just did our case our own reviewing that. Although I say it's not individual legal guidance, but I found these things to be really helpful and people really appreciate it when just are it's not like a sales thing per se of just like giving a piece of information, but really just helping you get a real understanding of what it's involved.
Yeah, well, I mean, ultimately, if I can help someone understand the NIW, then they'll be able to help me make
Hmm.
a stronger case for them. So it really does go both ways. And that's why I really think like knowledge is very empowering. And, that way people can kind of review themselves in a way and see if this is the right pathway. And then we're always there to help support them as they
Well,
go.
Helen, thank you so much for coming on the show. Stick around for me too right now, but thanks again. I'll definitely put all the information show notes so people could get tuned in for themselves as well.
All right.
You
Thanks
got
so much for having me.
Well, thank you so much for listening. Helen was so kind to come on the show, and unfortunately, I have these hard cutoffs, especially on my recording days when I have it on my system on Calendly to have no more than like 2 or 3 meetings a day, but sometimes somehow there's like 7 meetings, so it's like back to back to back to back, and I don't know how some lawyers doing where they say they have like 20 consultations in a week. If I do 2, 3 consultations a day, just in a day, that like drains me. If I do that 2 or 3 times in a week, I'm out because our consultations, I don't know, if it's like going to sporting event or something like that. I'm like, it's intense, and then I do consultation follow-up, some research, this and that, and it's really a hardcore endeavor for me. We do charge, but I'm seeing we charge kind of more than other people do on their consultation rates. I was going on Helen's website to check out her rate. It was higher than hers, so I'm like, okay, Helen's got great experience in her field, and so I was checking out a couple of like the top immigration lawyers on their website where they have their consultation rate, and mine's higher. But I just put a lot into it. And it is what it is. I'm trying to do concierge service. So I don't need to justify it, but 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 having said that, check out our Immigration Lawyers Toolbox magazine. The issue number 10 is out. Go to immigrationlawyerstoolbox.com. Just click on the magazine link, see it there. Join our community too. Having said that, I hope you have a good one. Until next one, be safe. Bye bye. If you like this episode, follow us on Instagram. Our handle is Immigration Lawyers Toolbox, where we post the latest statistics, tips, and more. And stay tuned for more from the Immigration Lawyers Toolbox podcast.